Real quick, the latest episode of the Let's Keep It a Buck podcast is out now. It's on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play. Links will be in the description for all of that. Check it out. Parity in the NBA is probably the biggest issue that Adam Silver and the NBPA are tackling right now, along with the one and done rule. After the Golden State Warriors signed KD, there was pretty much global outrage as people thought the NBA was ruined from a competitive standpoint. There's no team that can match up with the Warriors. There's no point in even trying. Parity was lost. This was the mentality of almost every person on Twitter. And one thing led to another, and this theory that parity never existed came from the other side of the coin. The idea goes that there have always been dominant teams in the league and that the Warriors are no different. The Lakers and the Spurs shared the 2000s and no one had complaints. The Heat were favored pretty much every year and no one complained. The Bulls won 6 championships in the 90s, yet no one complained. The Celtics and the Lakers won 7 total championships in the 80s, yet no one complained. The Celtics won 8 championships in a row, 11 total in the 60s, yet no one complained. Parity never existed and people just stay hating on the Warriors because they're dominating your favorite player and your favorite team. Dub Nation, baby. Alright, let me chill. But yes, that is how the idea goes. The Warriors are nothing new and the media is just trying to make it seem like it's the worst thing ever when it's really not. You see, I hate it when graphics like this on your screen right now go viral. Not because I don't like the person. I don't like it because it's simply feeding off of people with the attention span of a goldfish that don't even take the time to analyze and look back at those years to see for themselves how much parity there was. But then again, not everyone has the time to do that, like me, who literally does this as a job. You know what I'm saying? So I fully get it. Before we go on, let's just establish what parity actually is. Because some people, they just be using the word and then they spell it out and they spell parity like a comedic parody instead of its actual spelling. Like, come on now. According to Google, parity is the state or condition of being equal. Now, the NBA has never been in complete parity, obviously. Not all 30 teams have an equal opportunity at a championship, and some teams are given an advantage based on their location, market, and history. However, when people say parity is lost, I believe what they're trying to say is that more than ever, the NBA has become so predictable before the season even starts because the likelihood of a team matching up and beating a squad with 4 All-Stars in their prime, 2 of them being MVP caliber players, is not that likely. In 2017, 95% of fans predicted and expected the team to dominate the league and cakewalk to a championship, and so they did, winning 67 games and only losing 1 game in the playoffs. In 2018, it was the same, except it went down from like 95% to 80% because of the Rockets, who really did push them to 7 games, but the fact still remains that the Warriors were heavily favored going into the regular season and the playoffs and delivered the expected outcome. Aside from Houston, no one really had a chance against the Warriors. And no, Russell XX Westbrook 3939 in the comment section, the Thunder did not have a chance. But to say that this was and has always been the case is just ridiculous. And it's just a lie, okay? There is a difference between having no parity and just being favored. Like I said earlier, there have always been favorites in the NBA. That is nothing new. But the gap between the favorite and the second most favorite and the third most favorite and the fourth most favorite have never been this big. And displaying the outcome of the last 50 championships does not explain anything if you don't add any context. Like, put it this way, I know it's a very odd and off-topic analogy, but if you've ever watched the show Death Note, I just watched this like 2 days ago, shit is crazy. Spoiler alert, the #1 detective in the world, L, he dies at the hands of his arch rival and the mass murderer, Light. Throughout the series, they try to uncover each other's true identity through their detective work, and it becomes this extremely competitive and methodical psychological warfare between the two characters. However, in the end, Light does end up outsmarting L. My point is, the outcome does not display how close the competition is. Now, going back to the NBA, yes, the Warriors have won 3 of the last 4 championships, but in 2015, no one saw them coming. No one. let's keep it a buck, you did not see that happening. You did not see that team being that good coming into the season. And even when the playoffs came, people still doubted them despite winning 67 games and having the MVP. You didn't really know who was gonna win going into the season and in the playoffs. In 2016, although the Warriors were still favored to come out of the West, you weren't really fully convinced that they were gonna beat the Spurs or the Thunder. As a matter of fact, they almost lost to the Thunder. And then in the finals, they lost to the Cavaliers. Now, I can't say there was no one expecting the Cavs to win the championship, but there were enough people who thought the Warriors, the Thunder, or Spurs could win it all as well to say that there was a lot of parity in the league. From 2003 to 2010, there was definitely parity in the league. There was not a single year in this time span where the consensus going into the season was, this team is by far the favorite to win the championship, and no one is stopping them with the exception of the 2008 Celtics when the Big Three formed. The West had the Spurs, the Suns, the Lakers, and the Mavericks competing every single year, with the sprinkle of the late 2000s Denver Nuggets and the early 2000s Kings, who were all on equal footing pretty much every year. There wasn't a dominant team in the East that was working through everyone, so you didn't know who was going to come out of the East as well. In the 80s, yes, the Lakers and the Celtics shared the majority of the championships, but they were also competing against each other on equal footing, so you didn't know who was going to win between those two when they matched up. But then there were also the bad boy Pistons late in the 80s, as well as the 76ers who could beat the Celtics in the East. Again, there wasn't really a year where the majority knew who was going to win the championship from day one, and it actually happened. The 70s are the definition of parity, alright? And if anything, they are the poster child as to why parity is not good. And then the 60s. Now yes, the Celtics were favored in this time period for a decent amount of time, but their dominance in this time period is so overrated in the sense that there's this stigma that, like the Warriors, the Celtics went into every year as the dominant team and had no threats to them. There were years like 1962 where the Warriors would take them to 7 games in the conference finals, only winning game 7 by 2 points. And then in the round after, they would go up against the Lakers, and they would also take them to 7, and the Celtics would only win game 7 by 3 points. 1963, they'd be taken to 7 again in the second round, and then would be taken to 6 by the Lakers, only winning game 6 by 3 points in the finals, so that could have went to 7 as well. 1966, again when they were pushed to 7, winning the last game by 2 points, and then in the 3-year stretch from 1967 to 1969, they would get beat in 5 by the 68-win Sixers team in 67. I just said 6 so many times. God. And then they beat the 76ers in 7 games as the underdog, and then the Lakers in 6 games in the finals in 1968. And 1969, let me tell you about 1969. They were the 4th seed in their conference, which was pretty much the 8th seed back then because only 4 teams made the playoffs per conference. They didn't have home court for the whole playoffs. Bill Russell was on his last year at the age of 34, was a player coach of the team, and as Wilt joined Elgin Baylor and Jerry West on the Lakers, he would proceed to lead his team to a championship against them in 7 games, with game 7 being in Los Angeles, and they only won by 2 points. So cut the cap. Even in the 60s, there was parity. And then the 90s. In 1994, with MJ gone, clearly the championship was up for grabs for anyone. The Knicks, the Sonics, the Rockets, the Spurs, the Suns, the Bulls now all had pretty much an equal playing field, and no one knew who was going to win. The finals and the Eastern Conference Finals even went to 7 games. In 1995, I'd be damned if someone told me they expected the 6-seeded 47 Rockets team to beat a 60-win Team Jazz team in the first round, which mind you, that went to 5 games in a 5-game series. A 59-win Suns team with Charles Barkley in the second round, which went to a game 7. A 62-win Spurs team with MVP David Robinson in the Western Conference Finals, and then the 57-win first-seeded Magic with Shaq and Penny in the finals. Miss me with that no parity shit, come on now. Now it seems like I'm dodging MJ, right? But now we about to tackle it head on. In 1991, there was still doubt as to if the Bulls can beat the bad boy Pistons, knowing their history. And even in the finals, there was still some doubt as to if the inexperienced Bulls could take out Magic Johnson, who's going into his 9th finals appearance. In 1992, albeit being the defending champions and winning 67 games, they would still be taken to 7 by the Knicks in the second round, 6 by the Cavs in the conference finals, in which they only won game 6 by 5 points, and then they'd be taken to 6 games again by the first seeded Blazers, in which they only won game 6 by 4 points. In 1998, the Bulls were taken to 7 by a 58-win Pacers team, and then in the finals, they were the underdogs to the Utah Jazz, as Pippen was having back problems and Dennis Rodman wasn't even starting anymore. The three-peat Lakers were pushed to 5 games in a 5-game series the first round in 2000, and went to 7 versus the Blazers in the conference finals. In 2002, they were taken to 7 by the Kings, and y'all know the conspiracies about that series, so they could have easily lost that one. And although they did beat the Spurs in 5, it wasn't like it was a complete mismatch, because the Spurs were still a 58-win team with MVP Tim Duncan, and 4 of the 5 games were decided within 6 points. Now, if you've noticed with how I explained the last 3 dynasties, I didn't count for all the years that they were dominant, because I do believe that although there was indeed parity, it's not consistent throughout NBA history. There were a couple years in the 60s where the Celtics were heavy favorites throughout the season and won. There were a couple seasons in Jordan's dynasty where they were heavily favored and they delivered. 2008, the Celtics were the clear favorites once that big 3 formed, and they won. The Heat in 2012 and 2013 won as well. Is there parity in the league today? I guess that's up for debate. The fact that the Rockets took the Warriors to 7 games and nearly beat them, if it weren't for an injury, suggests no. But then again, I've never seen a team this favored delivered on their expectations as much as the Warriors have the past 2 years. And heading into next season, there's no reason why you wouldn't expect something similar. However, this idea that there was never any parity to begin with, I guess, is technically true by definition, because the definition is the state of being equal, and the league has never been fully equal. But the way people have been using it to say that the league has been predictable over 60 years now is a fucking lie. Man, I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Go ahead and click that sub button, you know what I'm saying, turn on notifications. Go ahead and follow me on Instagram. That is the fastest way to get notifications about the latest podcast, so I don't have to, shout them out on a video for you to know. Go ahead and follow me on Instagram at bsouls. Also post some fire ass content on there. Been working really hard on the Instagram. It's at like 6.5K right now. Hope y'all enjoyed this, and I'm out. Peace.